Welcome to the deep dive. We're tackling a pretty naughty topic today.
We are.
Understanding why some women step outside of their committed relationships.
Yeah, and it's vital right off the bat to say infidelity isn't, gender specific. It's a human thing. Men, women, everyone.
Absolutely.
But today our focus is specifically on digging into some key motivations, things that pop up in research and stories when we look at women and infidelity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this isn't about pointing fingers or falling into stereotypes. Not at all.
No.
We want to honestly unpack these sort of deeper currents, the emotional stuff, psychological factors, sometimes just the situation itself.
Kind of understanding the whole picture.
Right. Understanding the landscape, maybe, not judging the person walking through it.
And it's interesting because research does sometimes suggest the main reasons can differ a bit.
Oh, how so?
Well, you might see, for instance, novelty or opportunity, maybe mentioned more in studies looking at men. But for women, the motivations often seem more strongly tied to feeling emotionally dissatisfied.
Like something's missing in the relationship itself.
Exactly. Unmet needs, that kind of thing.
But we have to be really clear, right? Every single person, every situation is unique. There's no one-size-fits-all explanation here.
Couldn't agree more. Every story is different.
Okay, so let's dive in then. A big one that keeps coming up is emotional neglect. What does that actually, feel like?
Emotional neglect. It's basically feeling disconnected emotionally from your partner.
Disconnected? Like how?
Like, you try to share something important, something real, and it just doesn't land. Or you feel like your partner doesn't really see you anymore.
Or appreciate what you do.
Exactly that. Undervalued, unseen. It's that feeling deep down. And sometimes, the silence in a relationship, that lack of connection, can actually hurt more than fighting.
That's interesting. It creates a kind of void then.
It really can. A vacuum. And into that vacuum, attention from someone else can feel, well, incredibly powerful, like a lifeline almost.
So how does that emptiness, that void, lead towards infidelity? It's probably not just a sudden thing.
Rarely, no. Often feeling that disconnect opens the door, little by little.
Right.
Maybe it starts super innocently. A friendship, someone at work or online who just seems to listen.
Someone who gets it.
Yeah. And if that connection outside starts providing the emotional nourishment missing at home, well, those boundaries can get fuzzy, and eventually they might get crossed. It's often like a slow erosion fueled by that unmet need.
It sounds like that basic human need just to feel valued is absolutely huge here.
Oh, massively.
You hear that a lot with long-term relationships, don't you? That feeling of being taken for granted.
Precisely. In the beginning, there's usually lots of attention, affirmation, feels great.
The honeymoon phase stuff.
Right. But then life settles in, routines happen, and sometimes that just fades.
Yeah.
So if a woman consistently feels like, her efforts aren't noticed, what she brings isn't really acknowledged, she can become, vulnerable.
Vulnerable to someone noticing.
Exactly. Someone who does make her feel special again. That need to feel valued is so fundamental. And if it's missing for a long time in the main relationship, it creates this real weak spot, like a craving almost.
And then there's also just, the human desire for excitement, for that spark.
Absolutely. Can't ignore that. The desire for passion, for something new, for feeling desired, that's real.
If things have gotten a bit stale.
Yeah. If that initial thrill has dimmed in a long partnership, for some, stepping outside that familiar dynamic can feel like reclaiming a part of themselves that went quiet.
Rediscovering something.
That feeling of being wanted, pursued, it can be really intoxicating. A reminder of maybe who you used to be or a different side of yourself.
We also mentioned how our own internal stuff plays a part, like low self-esteem or maybe going through a personal crisis. How does that fit in?
Well, if someone's already struggling with their self-worth, maybe, things related to aging, big life changes like kids leaving home, career stuff.
Just feeling generally down about themselves.
Right. Then getting attention from someone new, someone outside the relationship, can feel like a huge boost. Temporarily, anyway.
Like a validation hit.
Exactly. It can feel incredibly powerful in that moment, almost like self-medicating for that low feeling.
But it's not really about the other person then.
Often, no. It's crucial to see that. In those cases, the motivation is frequently less about the affair partner and much more about trying to soothe those internal wounds or fill that inner emptiness.
So like you said, a temporary fix.
Yeah.
A bandage. Okay, shifting gears a bit to something tougher. Revenge or retaliation. Does that happen?
Unfortunately, yes, it does. If a partner has cheated first, or maybe if there's just deep, unresolved anger, bitterness,
Mm.
resentment built up.
What
And
happened?
sometimes infidelity can be a reaction to that.
Like trying to get even?
Yeah, sometimes it's about trying to even the score or inflict the same kind of pain they felt. Or maybe it's an attempt to grab back some control or power in a situation where they feel really wronged.
Not exactly healthy, though.
Definitely not a healthy coping mechanism, but you can sort of understand the emotion behind it, even if the action isn't constructive.
And then, let's face it, sometimes opportunity just comes knocking, right? It's not always these deep, complex reasons.
That's a really important point. You can't discount situational factors.
Like what?
Unexpected connections can just spark, maybe on a work trip or social events where, inhibitions are lower, maybe alcohol's involved.
Right. Things just happen.
Yeah. It's important to remember not every single instance of infidelity is some long-planned event driven by years of unhappiness. Sometimes it really is a lapse in judgment, a moment of temptation or heightened emotion.
This is painting a much more, well, complex picture.
Yeah.
It definitely pushes back against some of the simple ideas out there.
It does.
Should we tackle some of those common myths, like the big one? Women only cheat if they're desperately unhappy in their relationship.
Ah, yes, that one. It's a very common belief, but like we've been exploring, it's just not always the full story.
So unhappiness is a factor, but not the only factor.
Exactly. While being unhappy is certainly a major predictor for many, it's not universal. Some women might cheat even if they genuinely still love or care for their partner.
Why would they do that?
Well, their reasons might be rooted more in those internal struggles. We talked about self-esteem issues, maybe just wanting that spark back wwithout actually wanting the relationship to end.
Oh, that's counterintuitive.
It can seem that way. But paradoxically, sometimes infidelity isn't about wanting out. It's almost a misguided attempt to inject something, life, validation, into a life or a relationship that feels stable but maybe stagnant.
Okay. What about the myth that women cheat because they're looking for a replacement partner?
Again, it really simplifies things.
Yeah.
For lots of women who have affairs, the main goal isn't actually finding someone new to replace their partner.
So what are they looking for?
They might be seeking something specific that feels missing. Maybe that deep emotional intimacy or feeling truly seen or just excitement, but often without any plan to actually leave their primary partner.
Interesting. And the last big myth, it's always about the sex.
Right. And while obviously physical intimacy is usually part of it,
Sure.
for many women that's not the main driver. Often it's the emotional connection, that feeling of being desired, understood on an emotional level, the attention that can be far more significant than just the physical act.
So the emotional affair might be the real core.
It often is. The emotional connection might be the primary thing they're seeking, and the physical side follows from that, rather than being the starting point.
Okay. So putting all this together,
Mm-hmm.
what are the main takeaways? What does understanding all these different reasons really teach us?
Well, I think the key thing is understanding these motivations doesn't excuse the behavior, not at all.
Right. It's not making excuses.
No, but it does open the door for more compassionate and hopefully more honest conversations about what's really going on inside our relationships.
How so?
If we can start to recognize the vulnerabilities, the unmet needs that might lead someone down this path, maybe we have a better shot at actually addressing those things proactively before they become huge problems.
So seeing infidelity less as just a random betrayal.
And more as potentially a symptom, a sign of deeper issues, either in the relationship or within the individual.
That really highlights how crucial it is to actually check in with each other emotionally, doesn't it, on a regular basis?
Absolutely vital. Asking those sometimes awkward questions
Like,
hey, do we still feel properly connected? Or are we really making each other feel valued, feel appreciated?
And being honest about needs.
Yes. Are we both being honest about what we actually need and want right now as things change? Asking those questions regularly? It can be essential for keeping a partnership healthy.
Creating that safe space to talk about it before it goes sideways.
Exactly. Addressing needs before they fester and maybe lead someone to look elsewhere.
It really sounds like it boils down to the ongoing effort, nurturing the relationship.
Precisely. Relationships don't just coast along staying strong. They need active work. They thrive when both people are committed to nurturing that connection, facing challenges openly, honestly.
It's continuous work, not just assuming it's all okay.
Continuous engagement, yeah.
Wow. This has been incredibly insightful. So just to sort of wrap it up, we've seen that infidelity in women, it's often a signal, isn't it? A symptom of something deeper.
Yes, very often it points towards those unmet emotional needs we discussed, or perhaps breakdowns in communication. Sometimes it's about personal vulnerabilities, low self-esteem, or just the sheer complexity of being human in a long-term partnership.
Yeah, all those human imperfections.
Yes.
And it really makes you think how understanding all this, again, without excusing it, can maybe lead us to be more empathetic, more proactive.
Hopefully, both in how we approach our relationships and maybe even how we understand ourselves and each other a bit better.
Definitely gives you something to chew on, doesn't it? About how we build stronger connections and maybe look after our own well-being, too.